So I know I've said it before, but I really get bothered when people just attribute names and words to people and just throw it around, as a form to like vilify them. Like, oh, those people over there, they're just, they're socialists. God, I cannot stand it. Conservatives are like, everything I don't like is socialism, or everything I don't like is communism. And the left, y'all, everybody's a Nazi, right? Or everybody's a fascist. And I hate it because then when an actual communist or an actual socialist or an actual fascist or an actual Nazi rolls around and you go, hey, look, that's like actually happening. It no longer has meaning because everybody's cheapened the word. With that being said, I have touched upon this particular topic and we've skimmed it before, but now I have to go all in because apparently this weekend, Bill Barr went full Nazi, took the mask off, full 9 yards on Fox News. And they caught a little bit of flack for it, but it kind of, again, there's such a deluge of shit coming out of the White House that, like, it's impossible to keep up with all the things that are disturbing on any given day. So I'm actually going to focus a few seconds on this real quick. This was what Bill Barr had to say on Fox News.
It's interesting that one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter said that one of her focuses is to bring down the Trump administration. What is it about the Trump administration that stands in their way?
Well, I think they would be, generally for bringing down any administration. They are a revolutionary group that is interested in some form of socialism, communism. They're essentially Bolsheviks. Their tactics are fascistic, and your description of them is consistent with what I've seen.
Okay. Show of hands. How many people actually know what a Bolshevik is? I mean, I can't see you through the screen, but I'm going to assume that pretty much none of you have any idea what the hell a Bolshevik is and what the reference is. So now I am going to tell you, and you are not going to like it. And yes, while I said I hate when people call everything they don't like fascists and Nazis, etc., that statement, 100% Nazi trope, old school Goebbels. And I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to explain to you just how effed up this is, okay? So let's start at the top. This all rolls down into a term called cultural Bolshevism. And you'll know it by its newer name. Cultural Bolshevism, sometimes referred to specifically as, quote, Jewish Bolshevism, sexual Bolshevism, art Bolshevism, or music Bolshevism, was a term widely used by Nazi Germany-sponsored critics to denounce modernist and progressive movements in culture. This first became an issue during the 1920s in Germany when they attacked artists, and those artists were denounced by Adolf Hitler, the Nazi Party, and most other German nationalists as cultural Bolsheviks, okay? Nazis claim attacks on conceptions of family, identity, music, art, and intellectual life were generally referred to as cultural Bolshevism, the Bolsheviks being the Marxist revolutionary movement in Russia. Now, the reason why it's called Jewish Bolshevism, you had the Russian Revolution, you had Germany was struggling to pay back all their debts that they owed after World War I, after they signed the Treaty of Versailles, like they owed billions of dollars to all these countries. And so what happened is over the decade, from the 1920s into the 1930s, Germany resembled much what America looks like now, which is the few wealthy people stayed extremely wealthy because they were the ones who were manufacturing engines of war, while the vast majority of people in Germany became poorer and poorer because the country was paying off national debt, so there wasn't a lot of social services. And what happened was people became irate, society became unstable, and the state needed somebody to point a finger at before everybody else pointed their finger at the state. Enter the Bolsheviks, aka Jews from Russia. Are we all up to speed so far? Good. So, Jewish Bolshevism, or Judeo-Bolshevism, is an anti-communist, anti-Semitic trope which alleges that Jews were the originators of the Russian Revolution and that they held primary power among the Bolsheviks who led the revolution. Similarly, the conspiracy theory of Jewish communism alleges that Jews have dominated the communist movements in the world and is related to the Zionist occupation government conspiracy theory, which alleges that Jews control world politics. Now, if you've ever heard any of these modern day tropes, the Jews control the banks, or the Jews control Hollywood, and all the pedophiles are in Hollywood. Ergo, the Jews run pedophile rings. And I want you to remember that the term Jewish Bolshevism and Bolshevism were essentially used in the 1920s and the 1930s, okay? It is now 2020, and Bill Barr is on Fox News conflating black people with Bolsheviks. Just trying to get everybody up to speed, because it's a lot. If I just sit here and I slap like 2 hours worth of history into you, you're just gonna be like, it's just, you're gonna glaze over. So I'm trying to do this bit by bit, and so that I can tie it all together so you understand exactly what the hell is going on. In 1917, after the Russian Revolution, the anti-Semitic trope was the title of the pamphlet The Jewish Bolshevism, which featured in the racist propaganda of the anti-communist white movement forces during the Russian Civil War. During the 30s, the Nazi Party in Germany and the German-American Bund in the United States propagated the anti-Semitic theory to their followers, sympathizers, and fellow travelers. Basically, anybody who would listen. Hey, you got to watch out for those Jews because, you know, they control the banks and they took over Russia. Yeah, it's the Jews. In Poland, they had their own trope, and it basically stated that the Jews had a disproportionately high influence in the administration of the Communist Party in Poland. In far-right politics, the anti-Semitic trope of Jewish Bolshevism, Jewish communism, and the Zion occupation government conspiracy theory are catchwords falsely asserting that communism is a Jewish conspiracy. I'm going to give you one more piece on this, and then you sort of plug it all together. But you're starting to see what's going on here. There's basically a dominant white Christian elite party, and the country is falling apart around them, and they're going into debt, and there's revolutions, and they turn around and go, shit, we need to solidify the base so that, you know, we can have control. What do? Well, we take our finger and we point it at the outsider. We point it at the immigrant. We point it at the gypsy. We point it at the Jew and go, hey, look, those Jews are ruining your country. Look, those gypsies are ruining your country. Look, those black people in Black Lives Matter are ruining your country. See, it's the same exact trope, just through different decades. During the 1920s, Hitler declared that the mission of the Nazi movement was to, quote, destroy Jewish Bolshevism. Hitler asserted that the three vices of Jewish Marxism were democracy, pacifism, and internationalism, and that Jews were behind Bolshevism, communism, and Marxism. Now, can you imagine that? Hitler's main thrust was that democracy, pacifism, and internationalism are all evil things. Everybody gets a vote, we don't go to war, and we actually talk to our neighbors. This is what they term to be the Bolshevik conspiracy, and why all the Bolsheviks, aka the Jews, were ostracized and then rounded up and then sent to camps. This was the beginning of it, was people and the government pointing their fingers at a small group of people and saying those outsiders are the problem. If you ever sat around and wondered, how the hell did they kill like 6 million Jews in Nazi, in Germany? How did people let that happen? Well, people didn't just let it happen. People were conditioned for 20 years when the government and conservative thinkers and conservative media outlets spent 20 years, an entire generation, pointing their finger at a small marginalized group and said, they're the reason your country's fucked up. They're the reason why you don't have a lot of money. They're the reason why you can't afford to buy a house. It's not us. It's not our incompetence in government. It's not us stealing money from you. No. It's them. That's what cultural Bolshevism is. In Nazi Germany, the concept of Jewish Bolshevism reflected a common perception that communism was a Jewish-inspired and Jewish-led movement seeking world domination from its origin. The Jews are coming to take your stuff. The Jews are coming to take control. The Jews control everything, and the Jews are coming for you next. Does any of this sound familiar? Here you go. Joseph Goebbels. Yeah, this is his direct quote, okay? And I seriously, listen and ask yourself if it sounds like anybody you have heard recently, okay? White National Socialism brought about a new version and formulation of European culture. Bolshevism is the declaration of war by Jewish-led international subhumans against culture itself. Not only is it anti-bourgeois, but it is also anti-cultural. It means, in the final consequence, the absolute destruction of all economic, social, state, cultural, and civilizing advances made by Western civilization for the benefit of a rootless and nomadic international clique of conspirators who have found their representation in Jewry. Now, when I tell you that anti-bourgeois is anti-capitalism, and I tell you anti-cultural is un-American, all of a sudden, this sounds like it could be a press release from the White House circa 2020. Now we get into the big crux of where cultural Bolshevism turns into cultural Marxism, which is why you hear all the right-wingers today screaming about Marxism, even though none of them know who Marx is or what Marxism is. If you ask a conservative what is Marxism, it's literally everything they don't like. But you're a Marxist! So here you go, very quick, we're going to backtrack here. Here you go. Cultural Marxism is the contemporary variant of the term, i.e. the modern version of cultural Bolshevism, which is used to refer to the far-right anti-Semitic cultural Marxism conspiracy theory. Now, this is something we did in America in the 1960s as well, when Nixon launched the war on drugs, and its documents have been unsealed since then, which have shown that the entire thrust of the war on drugs was started by Nixon in the 60s as a way to surveil, arrest, and break up the anti-war movement, black radical movements, and basically to unleash a police state on poor and marginalized communities. And we did it by saying, oh, they're radicals, so we need to go break them up. We need to go put them in jail. They're Marxists. So this happened in the 20s and 30s in Germany. It happened in the 60s here, and it's happening again now. Essentially, what you're dealing with is fascism. And this is the last thing I'm going to talk about today. Fascism, a form of far-right authoritarian ultranationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, as well as strong regimentation of society and of the economy. Opposed to liberalism, Marxism, and anarchism, fascism is placed on the far right of the traditional left-right spectrum. Fascism is essentially people who want a single state ideology and a single party government who dictate a party platform based upon traditional Western values, which is white Christianity. That's what fascism is. It's using state force or the threat of state force to bring about a single ideology, single party, conservative, white, Catholic state. That's it. That's fascism. And now I remind you again that Bill Barr, the Attorney General, went on Fox News on Sunday and called people in the Black Lives Matter movement Bolsheviks, aka Marxists. Bill Barr went on national television and fully brought back a Nazi trope in broad daylight, and nobody batted a fucking eyelash. How bad is it? Commandant Donald Trump today tweeted out, quote, "The suburban housewife will be voting for me. They want safety and are thrilled that I ended the long-running program where low-income housing would invade their neighborhood. Biden would reinstall it in a bigger form with Cory Booker in charge." That's right. Donald Trump has no fear. He doesn't care about what you think about his white nationalism and his racism anymore. He's got Bill Barr on television telling you all to beware of the Bolsheviks, okay? And now he's tweeting out, white women will thank me for protecting them from black people. If you need any historical reference, we are now on the brink of 1933. This is no longer something to joke about. This is not a meme. This is officially some real shit. And in less than 90 days, we're going to find out if he tries to fully steal the election and ensconce himself in a permanent state of power.